Hey, this is Warren Sprouse. You're on the Bible Forum. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, and we do this just for you. I want to talk to you about the New Rome. Welcome to the New Rome. Michael Snyder, writing an article on the end of the America Dream blog. Back this past week, August 10th, says it is election season and a lot of people truly believe that America will be turned around if we elect Donald Trump. Others are completely convinced that Hillary is the solution to what ails us. Reality? No election can fix what's wrong in our hearts. And that's the biggest problem facing this country. As an illustration, he offers the mayor of Fairfax, Virginia, who's resigning following his arrest for allegedly attempting to trade methamphetamine for a group sex session with men he met online. City officials said in a news release Monday that R. Scott Silverthorne's resignation will take effect at noon on Thursday. He was arrested last Thursday on a felony drug distribution charge, and following his arrest, he was also fired from his job as a substitute teacher in the Fairfax County Public Schools. The Washington, D.C. area is one of the hotbeds for gay culture in the entire country. The Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority runs extremely graphic gay hookup ads, while at the same time absolutely refusing ads that promote the Christian faith. On the left coast, the mayor of Stockton, California, has been arrested for playing strip poker with boys and girls at a disadvantaged children's camp. 41-year-old Anthony Silva, mayor of Stockton, was arrested on Thursday morning after police say they found an audio recording of the poker game on his phone, consisting of 6 members of a disadvantaged children's camp after plying them with alcohol. Investigators say Silva invited at least 3 girls and 2 or 3 boys into his bedroom at the camp in August before convincing them to strip off. Last month was the deadliest July in 10 years for the city of Chicago, and police officers' shooting deaths for the country as a whole were up an astounding 78% just in the first half of this year. Morally speaking, what have we come to? Well, here's some suggestions, some information. A message from the Office of Attorney General of the state of Michigan, who wants you and everybody in this country to know that while driving on a rural roadway early on a Thursday morning, he saw an infant car seat on the side of the road with a blanket draped over it. For whatever reason, he said, I didn't stop, even though I had all kinds of thoughts running through my head. But when I got to a place where I could, I called the police department, and they were going to go check it out. But this is what the police advised him even before they went to check. They said there are several things to be aware of. Gangs, thieves, are now plotting different ways to get a person, mostly women, to stop their vehicle and get out of the car. There's a gang initiation reported by local police department where gangs are placing a car seat by the road with a fake baby, waiting for a woman, of course, to stop and check on this abandoned baby. There's no baby, but this is usually a car seat planted beside a wooded or grassy field area where the person, a woman, will then be dragged into the woods, beaten, raped, usually left for dead. And if it's a man that stops, he's usually beaten and robbed and probably left for dead as well. He's telling you here on the East Coast and around the country, do not stop for any reason. Call 911, report what you saw. Don't even slow down. In that same realm, there are incidents around the country of people driving, usually at night, when eggs are thrown at the windshield. And the experts say, don't stop. And whatever you do, do not put on your windshield wipers. Do not spray any water on the eggs. Don't do anything but get out of there. Water mixed with eggs produces a milky solution you can't see through. And that will cause you to stop, and you don't want to do that. Here in Charleston, we've got a rash of people reporting that 3, 4 o'clock in the morning in certain sections of town. One I remember is a road that feeds onto our 526, the beltway around Charleston. And there's people out there with guns, and they're firing guns at cars as they go by. And some of the pictures on the news show 10, 15 holes in the side of a car. Nobody's been caught yet. But the world is coming unglued. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Lauren was driving to visit a friend. An unmarked police car pulled up behind her and put his lights on. Lauren's parents had all told her to never pull over for an unmarked car, but rather wait until you got to a gas station or someplace with people. Lauren had actually listened to her parents' advice and promptly called 112 on her cell phone. 112 is a direct line to a state police dispatcher. And that dispatcher told her exactly what her parents told her. Do not stop. Do not pull over. Keep driving. And the state police then notified people involved, found out it was not a police officer, and it wasn't long before 4 police cars surrounded her and the unmarked car and dragged that boy out of his seat. The man was a convicted rapist, and he was wanted for other things as well. Now, I never knew about 112 cell phone calls, did you? But folks have tried it, and they said it works, and you should use it liberally. And it works in all 50 states. There are other signs that things are coming unglued. In 2015, more than 40% of all babies born in America were born to unmarried mothers, and that's the 8th year in a row. Of the more than almost 4 million babies born in the United States of America, in 2015, 1.6 of them were born to unmarried women, according to data released by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Prior to 2008, this had never happened before in our entire history. And if you go all the way back to 1940, only 3.8% of all babies were born to unmarried women. The percentage first went as high as 10% in 1969. What changed in 1960 during that time period? What changed? In 1983, it surpassed 20% for the first time. In 1992, it exceeded 30% for the first time. At that same time, crime and violence continued to rise in this nation. This week, a Google employee out for a run was raped, beaten, and burned, her hands and feet, in Massachusetts. On the other side, April 2015 saw the death of Freddie Gray. The Justice Department conducted a year-long investigation into one of this country's largest police forces. Those findings saw the Baltimore police agreeing to negotiate court-enforceable reforms. The report was scathing in its findings. It found that officers make a large number of stops, mostly in poor black neighborhoods, with dubious justification, and unlawfully arrest citizens when officers, quote, did not like what those individuals said, end of quote. Among the findings, black residents account for roughly 84% of stops. They represent just 63% of the city's population. Likewise, African Americans make up 95% of the 410 people stopped at least 10 times by officers in the Baltimore area. The Justice Department has undertaken similar wide-reaching investigation into police in Chicago, Cleveland, Albuquerque, Ferguson, Missouri, among other sites. What's happened to us? Well, what happened over a 20-year period from about 1968 to 1980. In the late 1960s, a generation of children raised by parents born during the Great Depression era came to adulthood. The generation that saved democracy, the generation that rebuilt this country after the war, the generation that gave their children everything they never had, the generation that was convinced their children that the world was their oyster. Those children came to adulthood, and our culture changed forever. The Civil Rights Movement brought the plight of black folks out of the shadows and set them on a path toward true equality, only to be hijacked by a formerly anti-black, truly arrogant Southern Democrat president and Congress who initiated the Great Society. In this one move, designed to benefit black folks, they served to simply exchange their slavery from the plantation to the federal government. It was a move that destroyed the black family and the black initiative. It also handed Congress and the president 1/3 of the federal budget. By the mid-1960s, the Vietnam War brought anti-government demonstrations into the streets, where young people, largely college students who resented being drafted, could vent their anger in ways that impacted the electoral process, giving them newfound power. It was the power of anarchy. Where did they learn this? They learned it in our now liberal colleges and universities, institutions largely the product of 40 years of John Dewey's experiment. By the 1970s, we had birth control pills, abortion on demand, and no-fault divorces. These social programs literally destroyed the American family structure. Abortion would eventually include legalized murder, as babies came to full term, were ushered out of the mother's womb and then killed with a stab to the base of their head by nurses and doctors. They called it partial birth abortion, and a sizable number of us as Americans defended its use. At the same time, the Bible was ushered out of public schools by the feelings and the opinions of one woman. In its place came every sort of destructive effect: violence, drugs of all sorts, immorality, anarchy, everything except education. The so-called public school systems morphed into a state school system and then a federal school system where parents have no say and where education is not the goal. The goal is indoctrination, conditioning. Psychiatrist John Dewey was tasked with modernizing our public school system in the 1930s. He created a psychological laboratory that replaced the classroom. His students were now grandparents and grandchildren running major institutions in America. Today we stand on the cusp of anarchy with a population under 40 that almost cannot function. It doesn't matter which political candidate wins the next election. The die is cast. The direction of this once Christian nation is sealed. To change that direction means changing our entire social, political, religious system. Short of a violent takeover of every aspect of society, this is not going to happen. An EMP burst over Kansas City that cripples our infrastructure for the next year or so would change everything dramatically. That would be a violent overthrow of our society. A war that comes to our shores, an epidemic, Zika, or a catastrophe that takes out 40% or more of our population, something that requires adults in places of leadership, adults with character, godly character. But then how many of that sort do we have? Have you seen our presidential candidates? Until then, the children, the anarchists, the godless opportunists will continue to run things. And they will run them to their own benefit. If you want to know where we're headed, you need only look at the UN. They have charted the course. And through the Bilderbergers and the Trilateralists and all the rest who have had meetings for the last 50 years to indoctrinate any and everybody they thought would have some influence or authority in society worldwide, it's happening. You can't stop it.